This is section 3.01 of the Unit 3 Notes Intro to Budgeting. Today I am, as in you are the student, reviewing division and evaluating linear equations so that I can use equations to make predictions and calculate gross pay. I will know I have it when I can calculate gross pay based on pay amounts and pay periods. Specific techniques we're looking at for today's lesson is 2A, use rates and linear functions to solve problems involving personal finance and budgeting, including compensations and deductions. Quick review on powers of 10. Powers of 10 are numbers such as 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, 1 million, and so on and so forth. There are shortcuts when you multiply or divide by 10. We're going to look, or divide by powers of 10. So we're going to look at specifically dividing by powers of 10, that specific shortcut. When you divide by a power of 10, you can use the following shortcut. Move the decimal point in the dividend to the left of the same number of places as the number of zeros in the divisor. In layman's terms, if you have 1 0, you're going to move the decimal to the left once when you divide by 10, for example. When you divide by 100, you have 2 zeros, which means you're going to move the decimal point to the left twice, wherever it's located. If you're dividing by 1,000, you have 3 zeros, which means you're going to move to the left 3 times when you divide by 1,000. So that is the shortcut when dividing by powers of 10. Here is a quick video review that we're going to watch now.
Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and do some division with powers of 10. Powers of 10 are simply the numbers that have 1 and a 0 with it. So 10 is a power of 10, 100, because it has zeros, is a power of 10, 1,000 is a power of 10, 10,000 is a power of 10, and so forth. So any number that is 1 plus a bunch of zeros is a power of 10. So the really cool thing about dividing with powers of 10 is it's just really about moving the decimal. Okay, so there's no decimal in 600, but I can always put one in at the end of the number. And when I divide, I'm simply going to take the decimal to the left, the number of places that there are zeros in my power of 10. So I'm dividing by 10, 1 0 there, so I'm going to move the decimal one place. Answer is 60. So what if you have numbers back here after you move your decimal, like in this one? I go ahead and put my decimal in. I need to move to the left 2 spaces because there are 2 zeros in 100. And I go ahead and move them over, and I just go ahead and leave those numbers behind the decimal. So 843 divided by 100 is 8.43. And then it's only slightly different if you already have a decimal there. I'm just going to go ahead and move the decimal from where it's at. Again, I'm going to move to the left. I'm going to move 1, 2, 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3. Fill in. The answer is 0.0763, and we want to put a 0 in front of our decimal too. So that's all there is to dividing with powers of 10.
Okay, and again, that's just a quick overview of what the shortcut is. So again, we can use our calculators if you would like, but if you know the shortcut, sometimes it might be easier to just use the shortcut instead of just taking the few extra seconds to plug it into your calculator. So for example, 56,015 divided by 1,000, you would take its current decimal place and move it to the left 1, 2, 3 different times because of the amount of zeros that it has, and you'll get 56.015, which again, if you just plug it into the calculator, you'll get the exact same thing. Sometimes you don't want to pull out the calculator for anything, and if you have the opportunity to use shortcuts and to not have to use certain things that may take up a little bit more time, then feel free to do so. Okay, so 37.164 divided by 100, we have 2 zeros. You're going to move the decimal point to the left once, twice. If you have if you don't have anything on the left of that decimal, just fill it in with a 0. And then you have something with 4 zeros that we're going to move 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. You notice we have a blank right there in front of that decimal point or behind it. I forgot what the orientation of the decimal is, but to the right of the decimal point, there is a blank. That blank is usually filled in with a 0. To the left of it, if you want, you could also put the 0 right there, and we get 0.0934 when we divide these numbers. And again, these are dividing by powers of 10. We move the decimal point to the left, however many zeros we have. Moving on to something else, making predictions. Equations can be used to make predictions by evaluating the equation. So a lot of what we're fixing to do is just to plug in and solve. So here's another video that we're going to watch, I believe from Khan Academy, about plugging in to and evaluating these equations for certain values. So here we go.
Agent Hunt is transferring classified files from the CIA mainframe into his flash drive. This is the formula for the size of the files on Agent Hunt's drive S, measured in megabytes, as a function of time, t, measured in seconds. Complete the following sentences with the appropriate missing values. When the transfer began, the drive had blank megabytes of files on it. So when the transfer began, that would be t equals 0. T equals 0 was right when the transfer began. So t equals 0, s of 0 is going to be 5 times 0, 5 times 0 plus 45, which of course is just going to be equal to 45.
Now notice again what he did right there is t is a measure of time. When the transfer began, that's code for time equals 0. So 0 gets plugged into the equation, 5 times 0 plus 45, and we know that once the transfer began, the drive had 45 megabytes of files on it.
And S is measured, they tell us, measured in megabytes. So there were 45 megabytes of files on his drive before or right when the transfer began. Then they say every 10 seconds, an additional blank megabytes are transferred into the drive. So every 10 seconds, how many? Well, one way to think about it, there's a bunch of ways you could think about this. One is, well, we know that there were 45 megabytes at time equals 0. Well, let's think about what happens 10 seconds later. How many megabytes are in his drive? So we could say S of 10 is going to be 5 times 10 plus 45, which is equal to 50 plus 45. So at time equals 0, there were 45 megabytes, and 10 seconds later, there's now 50 plus 45 megabytes. So in 10 seconds, an extra 50 megabytes are transferred into the drive. And that's expected, because as t increases 1, this function goes up by 5. So if t increases by 10, this is going to increase by 50. So for every 10 seconds, you would have 50 megabytes are transferred in the drive. And you could test that more if you want. You could say, okay, let's go another 10 seconds. S of 20 seconds, that's going to be 5 times 20 plus 45, which is equal to 100 plus 45. So notice, when 10 seconds have passed in time, when we've increased time by 10 seconds, we've increased memory. Our memory that we're using, the megabytes we're using, has increased by 50.
So again, for this second part, every 10 seconds, so time is measured in seconds, we have an equation that represents the size of the files as a function of time. So the size of the files in megabytes is equal to 5 times the amount of seconds plus 45. So in the second part, 10 seconds gets plugged into t because t is measured in seconds. So this is 5 megabits per second is basically what that's saying. So 5 times 10 after 10 seconds, that's 50 megabits per second. And then 50 plus 45 is a total of 90. If in this problem, it says an additional what megabytes are transferred into the drive. We don't care about the 45 in this problem. We care about what additionally gets applied to the 45, which is 50 in this case. So that's it for that video. Again, just a quick review on how to interpret these linear equations and how to plug into them to solve them and interpret the results as well. So let's review in this example the model of y equals 0.045x plus 1,240 can be used to predict a salesperson's gross pay, where x is the person's sales. According to the model, what will the salesperson's gross pay be if they sold $4,530 worth of products? Okay, so just to kind of go off of the video from the previous section, what if he didn't sell anything? X equals 0, and so his gross pay would just be $1,240. Okay, if he just sold nothing, then he would just get that amount back to him. Okay, so this is saying that he gets 0.4045 of what he sold in commission, I'm assuming, if they sold $4,530 worth of product. This is a commission problem. We've done commission before in one of our previous units. So in this case, what does 0.045 represent? That's the commission rate. If we change back into its percent, this is 4.5% commission. Now, what does the 1,240 represent? That's his salary, his base salary, if he doesn't spend anything, or if he doesn't sell anything. However, in this problem, what will the salesperson gross pay be if they sold $4,530 worth? We're using that as a part of his pay, what he's getting paid along with his salary. So what is his gross pay? Well, so we're going to start off with the equation right here. And we know that he sold $4,530. Well, what part of the equation represents his sales? The X value. The X represents that person's sales. So we're going to plug X with 4,530 and then plug it into the calculator and solve. You can either plug it in all at once or you can do it piece by piece. I'm going to plug it in all at once. So 0.045 times 4,530 plus 1,240. Oh, whoops. Plus 1,240. I said I was going to do it all at once, but I did it piece by piece. And we get $1,443.85. So that's what his gross pay will be with commission. Okay, now let's go through another example. The equation y equals 15.7x plus 459 can be used to predict the cost of renting a studio apartment in a certain housing complex, where x is the number of years since 2005. What is the best prediction for the cost of renting a studio apartment in this complex in 2025? I'm going to cover some things up so that we can talk about it as we go. Okay, so we have an equation that represents the cost of renting a studio, and then X is the number of years since 2005. So what can we interpret from this equation? Well, if 0 years went by, then we know that the cost of renting the studio apartment would be $459 flat. 15.7 is the amount of that gets raised per year, essentially. It gets raised 15.7 for the amount of years since 2005. So we need to know, first off, how many years since 2005 has it been? We're trying to calculate this equation for 2025. So 2025 minus 2005 is 20. So it's been 20 years. We're calculating this equation for 20 years. What will the price be in 20 years for this complex? Now we're going to substitute this x value into the equation and solve. So again, the equation y equals 15.7x plus 45 represents the cost of renting the studio apartment at a certain housing complex. X, in this case, is 20. So we have 15.7 times 20 plus 459. And we type that in. We get $773 per month. Well, not per month. It doesn't say per month. Usually you pay monthly for apartments or housing, etc. But in any case, y equals $773 that you'll have to pay for renting this studio apartment in the year 2025. All right, that's it for example 1. Let's look at you try number 1. Those of y'all that are following along in Class Kick at this moment, I would like for y'all to pause the video, go through steps 1 and 2, and try to do this problem on your own. Move this box to check your answer and see if you did everything correctly. Otherwise, I'm going to continue on and show y'all how to do this. So, you try number 1, the equation y equals 0.172x plus 1.04 can be used to predict the price per gallon of regular gas, where x represents the number of years since 2000. According to the model, what will the price per gallon be of regular gas be in 2025? So, in this problem, x represents number of years since 2000. So, to interpret the equation, this equation, again, it's price per gallon of regular gas. If 0 years went by, the current price would be $1.04 per gallon. And for every year that passes, the price raises by 0.172 per gallon. Excuse me. So now we need to figure out what the price of the gallon per gallon of gas will be in 2025. So again, x represents the years since 2000. So the first thing we're going to do is take 2025 and subtract 2000. It should be 25, but you could plug it into your calculator if you want, if you're not exactly sure. And x represents 25 years. So now, x will get substituted in with 25. And we're going to type that into the calculator. 0.172 times 25 plus 1.04. And gas will be $5.34 per gallon in the year 2025. That's it for you try number 1. Moving on to something just a little bit different, gross pay. Your annual gross pay depends on how much you're paid per period and the number of your pay periods in a year. In this example of a earnings statement, you can see that the gross pay year to date for the entire year is $33,440. Okay, so again, for the year, this is $33,440. However, there is a period that that was calculated. Looks like this was maybe bi-weekly, every 2 weeks. Because if you get anything over 40 hours, you get into overtime. So I'm assuming This is bi-weekly. For this pay period, she got $1,760 in gross pay. Now, depending on your employer, your pay period may vary. How often is a person paid? Again, it depends with your employer. They could pay you weekly, which is 52 times a year, bi-weekly, which is 26 times a year, basically every other week, semi-monthly, 24 times a year, which is twice a month, usually the 1st and 15th of that month, monthly, which is every month, once per month, 12 times a year, or annually, which is just one time a year. So these are the different pay periods. There may be some others. It's not very common to get paid other than what's on the calendar, but that's that. Calculating gross pay. Here's some formulas. We'll talk about how we'll break these down in a little bit, but the formulas for gross annual income that we're fixing to do is hourly rate times the hours worked times the number of pay periods. Again, this is gross annual income, so we're looking for the entire year. This represents a year. Gross monthly salary will be the salary times the number of pay periods and then divided by 12. We'll break these down in the following examples. Example 2. Alice earns $12.65 per hour and works 38 hours a week. What is her gross annual income? So gross annual income is hours, and again, we're going for annual income. So there's one extra thing we have to do. We have to do hourly rate times the hours worked times the number of pay periods. We have $12.65 per hour, and then we have 38 hours a week. Okay, so if we stop it there, this is how much she gets paid in 1 week. We want to figure out from there how much she gets paid for the entire year. So then, because this is weekly, we multiply by 52. If it said she works 38 hours in a month, we would have instead used monthly. And then this would be in terms of months. But again, that's not what happens. This is weekly. Anyways, plug these into the calculator. 12.56 times 38. This is how much she makes for the entire week. However, we want the annual income. So we're going to multiply this by the amount of pay periods for weekly, which is 52. And we get 24,000. Oh, whoops. So that should be 65. Times 38. And then multiply that by 52. $24,996.40. And then that is your final answer for example 2. All right, you try number 2. Oliver earns $20.15 per hour and then works 40 hours a week. What is his gross annual income? Go ahead and pause this video. Try this problem on your own. Move these boxes to figure out how to do the work and then check your answer. Otherwise, I'm going to continue on and show y'all how to do this. So, Oliver earns $20.15 per hour and has worked 40 hours a week. What is his gross annual income? So, this is weekly, which means I'm going to be using 52 times a year eventually. If it said every other week, I would have used bi-weekly. If it said twice per month, I would have used semi-monthly. Monthly for 12 times a year, and then so on and so forth. So again, be aware of how much you're getting paid and during what time, what pay period, what time period this is. So I know the hourly rate is $20.15 per hour. I know the amount of hours worked is 40 hours. And I know this is weekly. So weekly means I'm getting paid 52 weeks out of the year. Multiply all of that together. 20.15 times 40 and then times 52 is 41,912. So 41,912. That is your final answer. Okay, gross monthly salary. Andrew's bi-weekly salary is $1,240. What is his gross monthly salary? So to find gross monthly salary, we're going to take the salary times the number of pay periods and then divide that by 12. So here's how this should go. We need to do first what we make for the entire year. Okay, so this left side of the calculation, this is calculating the entire year. So 1,240 bi-weekly means I'm going to multiply that number by 26. 1240 times 26 equals 32,240. Then I'm going to divide it by 12 because it asks for the monthly gross salary. What am I making, or what is Andrew making monthly? So divide that by 12 and we get 2686.67 per month for the monthly salary. Now again, if this had said weekly, we would have multiplied this by 52. If this had said daily, we would have done 365 days. If this said semi-monthly, we would have multiplied this by 24, and so on and so forth. So be aware of how much you're getting, or what your pay periods are for the problem example, whatever. All right, you try number 3. Mary's bi-weekly salary is $1,124. What is her gross monthly salary? Go through the problem. Go ahead and pause the video. Go through the steps on your own. See if you can figure it out on your own. If you're on ClassKick, make sure you're answering in the box. And you can move this black box right here to see if you're doing everything correctly. Again, pause the video. Try this on your own. Otherwise, I'm going to continue on and show you all how to do this. Mary's bi-weekly salary, so bi-weekly should automatically say 26 times a year, is $1,124. What is her gross monthly salary? So first off, I need to figure out what her yearly salary is. So this first part that you see underlined right here, this is the gross yearly salary. I'm going to multiply these two together to get the yearly salary. So 1124 times 26 will be 29,224. So 29,224. And again, we multiplied 1124 by 26. Now that we got our gross yearly salary, we want to know what the monthly is. So we're going to have to divide by 12. So split this up into 12 months, divide by 12. Again, 29,224 divided by 12. And we get 2435.33. 2435.33. 2435.33. Gross monthly salary is $2,435.33. And that's it for you try number 3, and that's it for 3.01 notes. If you have any questions, let me know. Y'all have my email and number available in the Practical Math B course, so just let me know whatever questions y'all have or whatever help you may need, and I will see y'all in the next video. Take it easy, everybody.